Welcome, one and all, to Payne County, America, and to the, I don't know what we call this, the office annex of St. John Catholic Student Center.
I call it the waiting room.
The waiting room?
Yeah, it's like you're the spiritual doctor, and then this is the waiting room. Yeah.
It's used for Bible studies. Every room in here is used for. This is a Bible study room. There's some marriage meetings that are taking place here.
Some RCIA.
Focus missionaries pray the rosary here in the morning. Oh yeah, that's right. Our Tuesday overflow RCIA class.
Yeah.
Meets here. Well, welcome to Payne County, everybody. If you're a parishioner of St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church, Father Lawrence Nwachukwu is about to arrive. We got like another 14 days or something like that before we are no longer pastorless with at St. Francis Xavier. So again, if you're looking for ways to grow in your faith life or just deepen your relationship with other people in the Catholic world here in Payne County, talk to Kira Ziola. Oh, you know how great I am with names? Who's the evangelization coordinator?
Corey Hicks.
Corey Hicks, thank you.
Come on.
Oh, sorry, dude. Sometimes I've got it, and other times, what's your name? Clay Furleigh?
Oh, yeah. Don't worry. Whenever people, like students around here, are like, I think Father Kerry forgot my name. Like, don't worry. Still forgets mine.
Yeah, don't be sad.
Yeah. It's not you, it's him. Yeah.
Between my two ears, there's not a lot of bandwidth there. Anyway, talk to Corey Hicks. Email them at St. Francis Xavier SFX.org. You can find all the mass times and stuff for the summer events going on, youth events. Clay Furleigh, who's our interim associate pastor, non-cleric.
Not pastor. Just interim podcast host.
Interim host.
Yeah.
Is a parishioner there. So if you, he's got this 2 screaming children and a lovely wife.
Hopefully by now.
And spiky hair. So if you walk in there, you're like, and you hear his voice, you're like, I know you.
Yeah.
Because your voice is going out across the state and through Payne County.
Internationally. Kyrgyzstan, apparently.
Apparently. Dubai, Ireland. I mean, there's all sorts of people who listen.
Djibouti.
You know what we did? We had because there's a Navy base there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy who was on deployment who was listening. And then apparently someone was listening in like the Caribbean.
Whoa.
Because they were on vacation there and they downloaded it while they were at their hotel.
Wow.
And they anonymously emailed Father Brian. I never get emails, by the way. So
that's
anyway.
Good. They want to be answered that way.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, so Clay Furleigh, we have this magnificent church next door. If you haven't been to Stillwater, haven't seen our glorious, beautiful churches, I mean, for the population, we have 2 of the most beautiful churches in the state.
I know. We got it good.
We got it real good. And we have good clergy, pat my own back. A lot of good ministry, a lot of evangelization going on here in Payne County.
I feel like there's a great, dedication to the mission of the church in Stillwater. Yeah. By the 2 parishes. So, I feel lucky. To be part of it.
So there's some really cool things, like when people come here and we give them tours and we're teaching them about the church. Mm-hmm. And I love doing that. I love walking them through and just like, teaching them about the beauty of our Catholic faith.
Yeah. I love giving tours as well. Cause like people come here and I'm like, wow, like this is not what I had when I went here.
True.
Yeah.
True. And the saints, I teach them about the Ravenna style art. Mm-hmm. And then one of the things when you were here when we were doing a lot of this stuff.
Right. I got to choose one of the saints.
Yeah, you got to choose. And all the saints were put up there. We actually stole the idea from St. Paul's Catholic Student Center in Madison, Wisconsin, UW-Madison. And they made all their saints young looking so that everybody would experience like, hey, like there's young people in heaven, not just, you get this new heaven, new earth, new body, new life. And you picked a particular one that I was like, when you, and I just want to talk about this because I want to.
I thought it was funny. I think I was kind of insecure about my choice when when I told you about it, because I don't think you had any idea who he was.
I didn't.
And then Father Harold, who's a CFR, came like a couple weeks later, and he shouted the guy I picked out like multiple times in his Lenten mission to St. John.
Oh, did he?
And you look back at me, you're like, this guy.
Yeah, I totally forgot.
Yeah.
I was like, did he really?
Yeah.
How come I don't remember that? Well, apparently at that moment. Mm-hmm. And I think he's an important figure and saint, not only he was insignificant in the 30s and 40s.
Well, that's because no one knew who he was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I want you to go into that. I'm going to give you a lot of time to talk about him because I think he's so important. And then even, how do we dive into this gently?
I think for a couple of reasons, I think he's important. One, he's very modern. So he lived in the 1900s, died in 1940s, towards the end of World War II. And he was killed by the Nazis. And two, I think
he was beheaded.
Yes, he was beheaded, which
gallows.
Is like only less than 100 years ago. Yeah, people were martyred by being beheaded. Yeah, and he's a martyr. So it's Blessed Franz Jägerstätter.
Oh, yeah,
that's the name of him. And
where's he from?
He's from Austria.
Okay.
Austria.
So tell me about like is Austrian like how does he go from dude in Austria to canonized saint?
Well, he's not canonized.
Oh,
he's
beatified.
Yeah. Yes. But I don't. It's quite remarkable because he's not famous. He's not well known. If you've seen like Sound of Music, you know, that's Austria, which is just beautiful.
Edelweiss, Edelweiss.
Yeah, we'll talk about Edelweiss in a little bit, but I think he's also important because he's married, and there's not a ton of married saints. I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, it's an easy vocation, they say. Jokes.
Yeah, it depends on, I guess, who you marry.
That's why I'm celibate. Somebody said Mission Impossible with Wakulich, and I was like, okay.
And I think him and his wife are just shining examples of what a Catholic marriage is, and one that results in salvation. Through their vocation. And I came to know of this saint from a very popular movie, A Hidden Life.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like a formed, low budget film. It's the best of what Hollywood can produce, by a director called Terrence Malick, who has a philosophy background before he was a filmmaker. So he's very thoughtful, and he has a very unique style to his movies, for better or worse. But for this movie, definitely for the better. Very atmospheric, very just like slice of life. You hear stories of like, he did the movie about the Vietnam War called The Thin Red Line.
Oh, did he really?
Mm-hmm. And apparently, like, there's this actor who's cast and paid as like the leading role, and he goes and he has this style of filming where he just goes and he films, and he just gets hours and hours of footage, and the actors are given these roles to play in a general loose narrative structure, and they're just told to act and to live in these scenarios. And he got like hundreds of hours of footage, and then slices something together that's like 2 hours long. And then the Thin Red Line, the guy who was paid, it was Cillian Murphy, the actor, that to be the leading role, was like barely in the movie at the end. And the protagonist ended up being Jim Caviezel's character.
Yeah.
Which is like so random, but it's like that's the story that he found interesting. So he has a very unique style of storytelling that I think is quite powerful when he can grab onto a firm narrative throughout.
So you watched this movie,
A Hidden Life,
and
yes.
and then what did you see in it that just like grabbed a hold of you?
I think the movie is powerful and done in a way that's quite striking. Like they filmed in his actual house.
Really?
Mhm. And so it was like his crucifix, his bed.
They went to that small town of like 500 people in the middle
Saint
of nowhere.
Radagoon.
It's like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's just a small farming village in Austria. And they farmed like he farmed, and most of the dialogue in the movie, and they sell the letters that most of it was pulled from were his actual writings. So most of the dialogue in the movie are his real words and the words between him and his wife.
Ooh.
And it's true. It's like, unlike a lot of Hollywood movies, like the Cabrini movie, it doesn't shy away from his Catholicism. It's like intrinsic.
Yeah.
Like you can't tell his story like without it. And like that was something disappointing about the Cabrini movie, is that it like almost never showed a church, and like never showed her talking about God, which is
what?
Yeah,
I never saw it.
Which is sad, because like what's a saint without their
The
relationship?
church and God.
Yeah, exactly. And
They're a do-gooder.
yes, and just like, and with this one, it's like his relationship with his wife and his relationship with God is the heart of the movie.
Oh yeah.
And I guess I should get into like the details of his life.
Please don't keep us waiting any longer.
And so basically, Franz Jägerstätter, he's just a dude. He's just a guy.
I think one of my favorite scenes is him like riding a motorcycle and drinking beer, not simultaneously, but
that's like his icon. He's like, there's one picture I have in my office. He's just smoking a cigarette. It's just a picture of him smoking a cigarette. And yeah, he was the first guy in his town in Saint Radagoon. I might be saying that wrong. Please forgive me. But with the motorcycle, and he was just like, he got into like bar fights and like all sorts of shenanigans. Yeah. He even like before he met his wife, Franziska, they share the same name. So,
of course.
But male and female versions. He had a child out of wedlock.
Whoa.
Yeah. And
spicy?
Yeah, a little spicy. So he's just very much like what you'd consider then like a modern man, just like living life, like hanging out with the boys, got the motorcycle, and then when he met his wife, who would eventually become his wife, he had a deep conversion, and he began to take his Catholicism very, very seriously, and you can tell it like kind of bothered his mother. It's like, she's changed you
for the better.
Yes, for the better, and you can tell. But like people still like looked up to him. He like was like voted in as mayor of Saint Radagoon, but didn't want it. He was like, I don't want to be mayor. He was like, I'm a father.
Wow.
I'm a husband. I'm gonna do
this.
It's
like that Fulton Sheen quote is like, the basis of the women is our basis of our culture, because they call us higher.
Right. And this is particularly
we were a bunch of schmucks until your wife came along, and look at us now.
Certainly true. But yeah, and it's like, and their letters to each other are just like very sweet. It's like there's jokes and there's just like nods to God in their relationship, and like Thanksgiving, and just a real love between them, which probably wasn't always the case, in a small farming town. Your options are probably very limited, so the chances of really having a truly romantic marriage was probably not the highest, but they really did. They really loved each other. Okay, that's being said, and they had 3 daughters together, and then obviously living in Austria in the 1930s and the 1940s is it's a Nazi occupation of
that's right.
Austria. And
There's the vote. There's a vote that comes up because
Mhm.
1939 is when October 1st, 1939 is when
correct.
Poland is invaded.
Yeah, and so
And the war begins.
they actually vote for like Nazi rule in Austria
Mm-hmm.
to give the facade that this is a democratic decision, and I think like Franz's little town is kind of a microcosm of what was happening on a grander scale
Right.
in Austria, which is like, he deliberately and recorded on his own that he voted no.
That's right.
And like no to the occupation of Nazi Germany over Austria, but they suppressed his vote, and when the decisions was announced, it's like, oh, our town voted unanimously for this as like a celebration. He's like, but he knew what he voted for, and eventually he was like called for military training, which he went, and when he came back, ever since then, after he came back from that first military training, he kind of deliberated his life and to not ever going to swear the oath to Hitler. I would like to read just a little bit of his own writing.
Oh, no, do it. I've never heard any of his own writing.
Yeah.
Other than the movie I watched.
It's fascinating because he was not very well educated. He had like a 6th grade education.
Yeah.
But he read a lot.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. I think
so this is one thing he said. This isn't in this quote here, but he's kind of, this is one of his famous quotes. He's like, someone who doesn't read is like a ball being kicked around a children's playground. Just like can't think for themselves.
Remember we went to that talk one time, and I was giving a talk, and I asked people what they're reading, and there were 40 people in the room, and 2 people were reading. I think I've already said this, but it was
brave enough to raise their hand.
Yeah. And it's this. It's like, what's forming your intellect? What's discipling you? Is it the Word of God, intellectual formation, or is it just reels on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok?
Yeah, I just like to say, what's particularly striking about Franz is like, I mean, there of the whole country of Austria, like there are probably many that had his sentiments, but very, very few, maybe a handful, maybe 4 or 5, really were able to do what he was able to do and stand up against what he saw as an evil. And
because he believed that his faith and his personal life and his life in the world were all woven together. There was not this dichotomy.
Right. And
the Kennedy effect, we call it. Like, I'm not going to allow my faith to influence my politics.
Right. Which is just ridiculous. But because people were afraid of electing a Catholic in the office. They thought they're just going to be a Pope spy or something like that.
Which it does an injustice to the person, because it's like, oh, I'm going to lie. I'm a believer in the gospel, and I'm a politician that does blank, and so therefore the two shall not come together. It's like in the kingdom of God, what are you going to be judged on? Both of them. Like, did you live out this gospel?
Right. And so you see,
so Franz is living it out.
You see Franz after he went to his military training, like very deliberate thought about the subject of taking the oath and of doing something. And this is, can anything still be done? This is Franz. Today, one very frequently hears it said that nothing more can be done, because if anyone were to say anything, it would only bring him prison and death. Well, of course, all that has happened throughout the world can no longer be changed very much. I believe that to do that, one would already have to begin 100 or even more years ago. But I believe it's never too late for us, human beings, to save ourselves and to perhaps also win a few other souls for Christ. As long as we live in this world, it really need not come as a surprise that nowadays there are so many people who can no longer find their way in this huge mess. People on whom you believe you can rely, who are supposed to lead the way with a good example, are simply running with the crowd.
Oof.
No one offers any clarification, either spoken or written, or rather, it's forbidden to offer any. And so, this unthinking, running with the crowd goes on, ever closer to eternity. I do understand that today many words really would achieve nothing more than, at most, imprisonment. Yet, despite everything, it isn't good if our spiritual leaders remain silent for years. Indeed, it is said that words instruct, but examples will inspire us to follow. Do we not want to see Christians who, in the midst of all the darkness, are still able to stand above it in clarity, calmness, and confidence? Who, in the midst of all the lack of peace and joy, the egoism and hate, still stand there in the purest peace and cheerfulness? Who aren't like a swaying reed, blown this way and that by every light breeze, and who simply and who don't simply watch the things their comrades or friends are doing, but who ask themselves only, what does our faith teach us about all that? Or can my conscience bear all this peacefully, that I may never have to regret any of this?
Oh.
Yeah.
Does it keep going, or is that the?
That's the end. That's the end of that right there. But he goes, and you can see in his writings, in his journals, he is very deliberately thinking of this, because every person around him tells him something else. He even gets a meeting with his bishop, the Bishop of Linz, who he writes down 10 questions in preparation before his meeting. And the first one he answers is, he asks, it's like, who can and wants to answer me these 10 questions? Who can give us a guarantee that it is not the slightest bit sinful to join a party whose ambition is to eradicate Christianity? That's his first question to the bishop.
To eradicate Christianity.
So it's like he wants consolation from the bishop, so he meets with him about not wanting to say the oath and conscript into the Nazi army. And he asks him, who can give us a guarantee that it is not the slightest bit sinful to join a party whose ambitions it is to eradicate Christianity? And so,
wow.
he comes out, like, I think the bishop kind of gives him general answers, leading the way of that he should do his duty to his country and things like that, which is what a lot of people say. But he comes out of that questioning of, is like, because some of that bishop's letters were what inspired him to feel this way originally.
Oh.
And so, but he says, I think he thinks I'm a spy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what they portrayed in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, is this guy a spy? What's the second? Is there a second question?
There's like a bunch. So
hopefully there's 10.
it's like, when did church leaders reach the decision and give their sanction that we should now be permitted to do and obey anything which the Nazi party or government orders or wishes us to do? So
whoa, that's like right out of the books today. It's like,
right. It's like he's basically
ripped
asking
from the headlines as the.
It's like, why did your decision change and when?
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch more.
Read me another one. Read me. I just want to read the people of God. Another one.
I'll read the last one.
Oh, good.
It's 11.
Oh, there's a.
Yeah. So who can manage to be both a soldier of Christ and a soldier for Nazism, and to fight for the victory of Christ and his church at the same time for the victory of Nazism? So he's
Whoa.
here's and leading on to Franz's life, he does get drafted, and they were hopeful that wouldn't happen, but he does, and so he goes, he does what's just, and he shows up, but he doesn't make the oath to Hitler, and so they're obviously confused by this, and he gets thrown in prison and shipped all around, and eventually to Berlin, and where he's put on trial, and his Nazi military lawyer, just trying to cut him deals and things like that, and he's just very simply defiant that he just can't do what is evil in his sight. And what's particularly interesting and beautiful is his martyrdom is truly a dual one, and that he eventually gets tried for the sentence is execution. But his wife suffered greatly as well. Obviously, lack of his presence and how she was treated in her town because the fear of her fellow villagers, of like, they're gonna hate us because of what he does, and they like banish her, socially. And in a small farming town, you're very dependent on your neighbors.
Yeah,
and so people steal from her, etc. It very much it's a dual fate and a dual martyrdom. In that fact, she lives and raises
the three girls.
And it's really funny. At his beatification, she was still alive.
Ooh.
And she rode in on a motorcycle sidecar. It was really funny.
Oh,
yeah, so it's like
that's beautiful.
They share, the
Are
same
any of the
heart.
kids still alive?
I would believe so. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I guess if they were probably born in like 40,
yeah,
they would
around
be in
the
their
40s.
they'd be in their mid to late 80s by now.
So
depending on when they're
then probably so. So on here at St. John's, I picked him because one, it's like I really love that movie, and it's really beautiful, and I think he's just this great witness of life and doing the good no matter the cost. And as a married person, he had this duty to his country and to his family to not do evil, and it's like I feel like personally, it's like when Kayla and my wife and I watched this movie, it's just in some of the mannerisms of the actor's portrayal, we saw like ourselves in that, and it's the way they acted. But when I chose him for the wall at St. John's, I gave him the Edelweiss flower, which is the national flower of Austria. But also I chose it for a particular purpose, because the symbolism of the flower. If you're unaware, Nazi soldiers used to pin it to their uniform, because it's supposed to symbolize the true warrior. And if you see pictures of Franz, you may even see the picture of when he went to training in the Nazi uniform. But the reason is because it symbolizes a true warrior, because it only grows on the highest Alps. So the true
gotta go get it.
Yeah, the true warrior will climb up and get it. And I think Franz really symbolizes the true warrior who climbed the highest Alps to heaven.
Why isn't this kid named Lucas Franz?
Maybe one day.
Lucas Franz Furleigh.
Next kid.
Oh my gosh, dude. Clay Furleigh, thanks, man. Whoa, what the heck? We're out of time? Oh, no. I was just... Okay, watch the movie. What's the name of the movie again?
A Hidden Life.
A Hidden Life. Do it this summer. Enjoy it. Blessed Franz,
It's 3 hours
Jägerstätter,
long. Beware.
whoa, play for us.
Yeah.
Peace.